Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, coming to you from the Loves in, I think this is considered Etna. Maybe it's considered Pataskala, right off I-70 east of Columbus, Ohio, which of course is the capital and largest city in Ohio. So just got back from a bike ride. So if you've been here anytime in the past, I don't know, 6 months, you know that they are building this like distribution center warehouse thing right across the little street here. But and I have my bike trainer on the truck, which I can like set my bike in and just ride. And at first I was like, well, I'll just ride when I get here on my trainer because the roads and everything have been pretty wet. But then I got out of the truck when I got here and I was like, you know, because then I started thinking, I don't see anybody really over there. So I walked out to the street and I looked around, I saw like 2 pickup trucks on this side of the building, like total, that's it. No semis, no trailers, nothing parked, just 2 pickup trucks. By some access doors. So when I was like, you know, I probably could ride in that parking lot and no one would say anything. And so what I ended up doing is I rode behind the truck stop, basically down the little service road there. And then I realized there's a driveway that goes completely around. So I just rode laps around the building. And there was also one truck on the other side, pickup truck. So I had the place to myself, basically. Nice, smooth, brand new concrete. But it was a little bit of a different kind of workout for me because there was nowhere to coast. I was just pedaling the whole time, round and around and around and around. And there's a headwind coming out of the west. So every time I was on that side by 70, I was getting blasted. Got my windows down a little bit to cool off, but this air is like really cold on my head. So a couple things to discuss. You know, I get a lot of stuff that comes across my news feed, and every once in a while stuff just makes me laugh really hard. Although I don't want to condone the behavior in this story that I'm going to tell you, but it is pretty damn funny. It's also kind of a sad commentary on America in a way. So there was a dude, and I got this out of the newspaper from Clarion, Pennsylvania. And there was this dude who, while he was at the hospital waiting for his, I don't know if it was his wife or his significant other, his baby mama, whoever it was, but, you know, the woman who was having his kid, while he was there waiting, and this is according to the police report, so you know where this is going. Sorry about the glare. He consumed a pint of vodka, 2 bottles of wine, and 2 beers. Now, I don't know if she was in labor for, 25 hours, but even if she was, that just seems a little weird, a little over the top. And of course, after consuming a pint of vodka, 2 bottles of wine, and 2 beers, I don't even know why he didn't have a whole 6-pack. He caused a disturbance requiring the police to come out, and the worst part about the story is I don't know if the woman delivered a healthy baby. But, you know, if you can't wait while your woman is in labor, if you got to drink while she's in labor, you got a problem. And so does she, because she's with you, and so does your newborn kid. But I thought that was just bizarre. It's like Western PA out in the sticks. Maybe that's it. Anyway, another funny thing, because I just try to get a laugh some days. My GPS, so I got like 440 miles to go to my 90, which I have to be to by 3 o'clock tomorrow. But my GPS a little while ago, when I had like 498 miles, it said, careful, in 497 miles, there's a road you can't drive a truck on. Which to me, it was funny that my GPS is so not with it. Thanks, Garmin. And by the way, I updated it recently, but I don't know why it planned me out a route I can't drive the whole thing on. So, okay, that's the funny stuff. So every once in a while, somebody comes on my channel and says a bunch of crazy ass shit. And, of course, they don't support it with any evidence. But, typically I do respond. But in this particular instance that I'm going to tell you about, this guy basically accused me of like a cover-up, right? Because I didn't say something. It's not that I couldn't have said it. I just didn't think it was germane to the story that I was telling. So if you'll recall, in my last video, I talked about Brittney Griner being released from captivity, prison, whatever you want to say, in Russia. And I said how people were kind of all butthurt about the fact that, she got released in exchange for this Russian arms dealer whose name is Victor Bout. And, this other guy, Paul Whelan, who is a former Marine, didn't get released. And a lot of people made themselves look like asses, including some NFL players, because this guy's a former Marine and he's some kind of patriot. And so this guy who goes by the handle of Scooter Sullivan, he decided to tell me how Brittney Griner hates America. He did this whole long diatribe, right? About how, F her, she hates America, blah, 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 right? And how, she was released, but not this hero. As if the United States was the one that was like, oh no, well, we want her only. Like, I think the Russians had some say in this, right? Okay, that's the first thing. But, then he goes on to tell me, so why didn't you mention this arms dealer's name? I'll tell you who it is. It's Victor Bout. Like, I knew that. I know who the guy is. And the guy is, he sells dangerous, military weapons to whoever will buy them, no matter who they are. Whether they're good, they're bad, he doesn't care, right? And they're always bad, because if you're like a legit nation state, or even a legit like law enforcement agency or whatever, you can lay your hands on all sorts of weapons if you just call the manufacturer, hey, send me this, right? But so Victor Bout has been arming all these bad actors, terrorist groups, blah blah blah, right? And so this guy also, Scooter Sullivan, opined without any evidence that Victor Bout now, he's going to come after the United States. And my response was, well, he needs to get in line behind about 1,000 other people. But I doubt that Victor Bout really cares one way or another. The way he could hurt the United States, believe it or not, probably the biggest way he could hurt the United States is selling, military weapons to like these militia members and these, right-wing groups that want to overthrow the U.S. government. That's how he could hurt this country, right? He could sell it to terrorist groups that want to do harm to this country. He personally is not going to do anything. And candidly, he's on everybody's radar. I don't think he's going to go very far. I think his value to Putin, for example, is that he keeps his mouth shut. So anyway, let's get back to this Paul Whelan guy, who's the hero, the former Marine, the patriot. And even my good friend Lyle opined that he might be like CIA. So it's interesting because I have a lot of really astute viewers, and one of them is Diesel Drifter. And by the way, Diesel Drifter is a prime driver. I've met him in person. We actually met at a truck stop over in Illinois one day. And he sent me a comment, or put in a comment that said that this Paul Whelan character, and by the way, Whelan's family has said they supported, they're happy that Brittney Griner got out. But anyway, Whelan So Diesel Drifter told me, hey, Whelan was, court-martialed while he was in the Marine Corps. And he got, and Diesel Drifter said a dishonorable discharge. And that is mostly true. But here's the deal on Whelan. So Whelan was not born in this country. He is, he's an immigrant. And he holds like 3 passports. U.S. passport, I think. He was born in Canada, by the way. I think he holds a U.S., a Canadian, and an Irish passport because his parents are from Ireland. Now, I'm okay with people from Ireland, right? And I'm sort of okay with people from Canada, except when we're playing Olympic hockey. But anyway, Whelan comes to the States. He's living in Michigan, which I think is where a lot of Canadians hide out. And, at some point he joins the Marine Corps Reserve. Hold on, I got to do some emotional support. At some point he joins the Marine Corps Reserve, and then he does what they call, at least in the Army Reserve, going down range, right? He kind of like goes on active duty. So he's still a reservist, but he's filling an active duty billet, and he goes over to like Iraq or whatever, or Afghanistan, one of those places. It doesn't really matter, right? But here's the thing. He's a REMF, okay? He's an REMF, and if you don't know what that stands for, just ask any Vietnam veteran. He's just like some, admin guy, basically. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bad-mouthing admin guys, but this is germane to, this is going to be part of my story. So, admin folks, you got to have them, right? Supply, everything, logistics, food service, whatever it is. It all makes the war fighter, it all makes the guy on the tip of the spear be able to do his job, right? So it's all important. Everybody's role is important in the military, and I want to be clear on that. But anyway, this guy, but here's why I mention that. This guy is not some high-speed MARSOC, Marine Raider, combat, shoot 'em up, jump out of planes guy, right? He's not special forces or anything. But this guy has a track record of, we'll just call it embellishment. Like, he's told people in different times that he was on 2 different police departments in Michigan. Well, one of those police departments is like, yeah, he was kind of an admin guy and like a part-time, like, reserve police officer. Another one was a county sheriff's department. They're like, yeah, I've never heard of him. And, maybe he was on the police department of another town that he didn't mention. He also has told people that he has an MBA and a bachelor's degree. Not true. The institutions he listed, nope, no record of the guy. So that's kind of like his storytelling ability. But while he was in the Marine Corps, and this goes back to his storytelling ability, right? He got arrested basically for kiting checks and for fraud and stuff like that. And it was serious enough because, look, I knew like a gazillion people in the military that we used to call it payday eve, right? My wife would call it payday eve. Before all the electronic banking, if you needed groceries and it was the night before payday, right? It was the 14th of the month. Everybody's wife would, not everybody's, but a lot of people's wives go to the commissary, stroke a check for a couple of carts worth of groceries, even though the money wasn't in the account yet, right? Everybody did that, okay? Living paycheck to paycheck, trying to survive in the military, right? But this guy, it must have been pretty serious, and because he was court-martialed. Now, let me say this. He wasn't just court-martial, because there's different levels of court-martial, okay? Certain levels of court-martial, I know he wasn't involved in because the punishment he got is too severe to have been at a lower level court-martial, like a special court-martial, which can be convened by like a commanding officer, right? So he was court-martialed. he was reduced in rank 2 pay grades, and he was given not a dishonorable discharge. He was given a discharge 1 level higher, which is called a bad conduct discharge, or as we used to call it, the big chicken dinner, BCD, right? It's not as bad as dishonorable, because dishonorable often involves a charge that involves your direct military duties, right? So in other words, you surrendered your position without authority, you hazarded a vessel, you displayed cowardice in the face of the enemy. That would be a dishonorable, because you brought dishonor to the military. Okay, so he got a big chicken dinner, bad conduct discharge. Bad conduct discharge is, you're basically eligible for like no veterans benefits, really. Like the VA doesn't do that. But somehow this guy magically, through the power of embellishment, I'm sure, manages to get a job with Borg Warner as a like security dude, right? And in particular, Borg Warner's operations in Eastern Europe, Russia. Now, if you don't know who Borg Warner is an automotive parts manufacturer. They manufacture transmissions, other stuff, and they've been around for forever because the trophy that's given out at the Indianapolis 500 is called the Borg Warner Trophy. And I think Borg Warner used to make all the transmissions for General Motors. And I'm not sure if GM owned them. Some of GM's diesel pickups have Allison transmissions, but Borg Warner has been around forever. They make auto parts, right? So anyway, he's doing this. He goes into Russia, and he'd been to Russia several times. He goes into Russia, and he's got $80,000 cash on him, that supposedly. The Russians accused him of spying, but it turned out this dude was in contact, like he knew people that were in FSB. FSB is kind of roughly the equivalent of MI5 in England, or maybe the FBI. I don't know how much enforcement ability they have, but I know they are definitely an intel agency, So anyway, he's got like friends or acquaintances or people he thinks he's friends with in FSB. The Russians accused him of trying to get information, or believing he was going to be able to get information on, people that worked at certain, I think, defense contractors or whatever in Russia. But here's the thing, right? I said to my friend Lyle, I said, the dude ain't CIA. I'm telling you right now, he's not. Because I've studied espionage over the years, especially inside the former Soviet Union, inside Russia. The guy didn't fit the profile. And it turns out that as my research, because I had the Tim Travels research department looking into this. One of the comments I saw on the executive summary was the CIA basically was like, this dude ain't CIA, right? And here's the thing, if somebody is CIA, they never would deny that they're CIA. But here's what the CIA said, and this is what I was telling Lyle. First of all, and I didn't even know about this guy's record, but I was just like, this guy's amateur hour, right? He is not ready for varsity. And, based on what little I knew. But anyway, Whelan, because of that bad conduct discharge, man, the CIA wouldn't even take his application, right? Like if he went online to CIA's website, tried to apply, he's like, yeah, I was in the military, I got a bad conduct discharge. They'd be like, no, right? Like, no, they're not going to do that. Believe it or not, the CIA has a long history of not taking in, I'm not saying people don't do wrong once they get there, but they will not take somebody that has any kind of sketchiness. In fact, there was a New York State trooper, this is probably 30 years ago, there was a New York State trooper who applied to the CIA, and as he was going through the process, in an interview, he apparently thought that the CIA would think this was really aggressive, and it meant he was able to think outside the box. But he basically admitted to the CIA that he had framed like a bunch of people over the years, that he was a New York State trooper. And the CIA was like, oh, that's really interesting. All right, well, we'll get back with you. And they just turned around and turned that evidence or that information over to the New York State police, who then arrested the guy and, of course, had to let a bunch of people go out of jail. And guess what? He didn't get hired by the CIA. So anyway, Whelan is not. So here's why I'm telling you all this, right? The guy is not a patriot. He's not a hero. I think what was going on is this was the George Lazenby effect. And if you don't know who George Lazenby was, it's because he was a guy who played a spy, but really wasn't, and got his ass handed to him. He's the guy that played James Bond after Sean Connery, but before Roger Moore. He was only in one James Bond movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And Lazenby apparently thought he was like an actual MI6 guy, and got arrested in some foreign. Anyway, that was the end of his movie career and his spying career. I think Whelan was just one of those wannabes. And I don't know if the US government believes that he was going to try to sell industrial information to the Russians, or whether he was trying to set up his own little operation there in Moscow by getting some secrets. And then, and here's the problem with him getting secrets. He could do one of two things with those. Well, he could do a number of things. But he could either give them to the U.S. government, which the U.S. government might be like, we don't want that, don't need that, or just stop, right? But because the CIA does use people that aren't actually CIA employees, but they're controlled, and it's for a very specific purpose. They've done it throughout their history. But the other thing that could have been going on is he was going to get some Russian to give him information and then rat them out to the Russians and ingratiate himself. I don't know what his game was. Anyway, that's a longer than I had hoped for breakdown of Mr. Whelan. Now, let me say this. As a U.S. citizen, right, I still hope that he gets released. But knowing what I know about the guy now, and again, thanks to Diesel Drifter, if he does all his time over there, that ain't my problem, right? He played a dangerous game, and he got caught up in something that he's not able to manage, Because truthfully, if he was CIA, like some people on TV have said, he would have already been out. He would have had a diplomatic passport. And the CIA even said that. And I was trying to explain that to Lyle. Anyway, so quickly, I ordered a new truck. But I'm going to tell you what happened. I guess you could say I got cold feet about buying a new truck. So I was like, I'm going to hold off. And, I just was like, for some reason, I just didn't feel good about placing a truck order. And then I started thinking about the market and some of the comments that I've seen from my fleet manager. And, one of the things that, because I don't have like 14 grand laying around right now for my down payment for when a truck would come in. And so I was like, well, I got to do something, because this truck is coming off a lease in April. So I talked to Success, and they actually basically said you could put an order in for a lease truck, and you could order a Freightliner, Peterbilt, Volvo, or Kenworth. So that's kind of newsworthy right there, Volvo or Kenworth. However, the only two lease options you have if you want to customize them are Freightliner and Peterbilt. So then he was telling me about the pricing, and it turned out that Peterbilt is the least expensive on a weekly basis. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to order a Peterbilt for a 3-year lease And if something changes appreciably, and I want to own that truck, I'll make it happen. Or if I just want to order one to own, I'll do that. But because I ordered a Peterbilt, that means that I'm going to have to extend this lease, which is actually beneficial to me. And I will extend this lease out until around, I think that Peterbilt's probably going to come in around June or July. So we'll see. But I'm comfortable with that decision. I did order a bunch of options that I will have to pay for before the truck comes in. And I know it sounds weird to say, oh, I'm paying for options on a truck I'm going to lease. But the price they quote you is the base price, not with add-ons. But I wanted those add-ons because if I have the truck for 3 years, they're going to pay for themselves. If I buy the truck, well, then I already got what I want. And if for some reason I get rid of the truck or just, I don't know, walk away from the lease, then that's that, right? But I got a lot of options that are, important to me. Excuse me. One thing that I'm really excited about is the swiveling passenger seat. Because I like to sit over in the passenger seat when I'm just vegging at a truck stop. But a lot of times I sit sideways in the seat and I put a pillow up against the door so I can put my feet up on the driver's seat. And not my feet with my shoes. I'm talking about like socks or my bare feet or whatever. And so I'm just really excited about that. It's going to be a more comfortable truck. I got the airbags on the front suspension. I didn't get a lot of the things that other people might think are super important, like extra lights outside. That's just not a thing that I care that much about. But I didn't even get the Aero package, like they have some acronym for it. I didn't get that because candidly, like the other night, I was at a shipper in New York State, and there was a pothole so freaking big in front of this. So they have the doors, it's paved out to a certain point, but like in front of that where you got to basically do your maneuvering is gravel. And there are, I don't want to call it, pothole is not doing these holes justice. These are holes that candidly you don't know if they're like 17 feet deep because they were filled with water, and they're big, like a little kid could swim across them. They're like 20 feet across, easy, maybe 30. And when I'm backing in, sure enough, the door they put me in, there's an enormous pothole, like bigger than my entire tractor. And I have to back through it. I tried to work around it a little bit, but I had to back through it. And while I'm backing up, of course, I got my window down. And what do I hear? Across, the gravel, because, the front wheels are in the water. I'm backing up, but the lip of the pond is scraping on the bottom, and I hate that. I hate that I have my bottom panels are scraped up and chipped, and I don't like that. So I know some, the Aero package looks like really slick, but I just don't like having the bottom of the truck look like it's all chewed up. So anyway, I'll do a big rollout. I got for you history buffs, I got some really cool plans for this truck. And I'll give you a little hint. It relates to the Army of the Potomac. So there you go. All right. So anyway, thanks for hanging with me. Scooter, sorry to break your bubble, man. But I think Brittney Griner is more worthy of getting out of jail. I mean, after I learned about Paul Whelan. I mean, I hope he gets out. I hope he gets released. But, you know, when you play, you know, when you run with the big dogs, you got to be careful you don't get bit. So, anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Taking this load over to Pennsylvania or the Keystone State. And, yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.